Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Laurel Dawn Houston here, and I am so excited to welcome you to this week's Mapping Monday with Laurel. For those of you who have never joined us before, welcome. For those of you who are returning, I'm so glad that you are here and back again. Thank you for coming back and investing this time in yourself and learning how to love your body. So quick review for those of you who have never learned about body mapping before or are new to the page. Body mapping was something that I created over 20 years of study, studying people, studying psychology, studying body mapping, studying anatomy and physiology, putting it all together, learning some energy, some mindset, and recognizing that we all have a literal map on our body that the universe left to help us know and understand who we are and where we are going in this life experience. Body mapping is all based on proportions and symmetry. And this is why I love it so much. My thumb measures my eye. And so when I get out of comparison, I can be right about who I am and about who other people are. But if I try to use your eye against my thumb and I get into comparison, then I'm measuring us both wrong. And I will never understand who you are properly, and I will never properly understand who I am. So body mapping is based on your own proportions and your own symmetry. You cannot compare and ever truly know who you are. So we are, a couple people asked, but I really do just try to leave it up to the cards. And when I pulled a card today from the body mapping deck, thighs came up. And so I went, okay, we've had a couple of people ask. It's time. They're ready. So we are going to talk about your thighs. I had someone ask when I posted, why just thighs? Why not your whole leg? Well, because your leg is comprised of multiple parts, and each part of your leg actually means something different in body mapping. So your thigh is different than your calf, your knee, your ankle, your hip. And for the most part, the thigh is the part that we need the most healing with. The thigh is the part where we hold the most stuff. So what is in your thigh? Firstly, just to kind of clarify a little bit here, what do I consider your thigh? I know that this sounds like such a simple question, but you'd be amazed that it's not. So if you are sitting, the front of your thigh is where there's a crease. So if you were to then stand up, anything above that is your hip. Okay. If you are standing, your thigh and your butt, there is a difference there. And in the muscle structure, your glutes are actually what help lift you, where your thigh is what actually helps you move forward. So just in a whole, your thighs are what help to give you speed and strength as you progress. Okay. Your thigh is also where you hold your childhood memories. And when people do not value their past, or they have a lot of hurt, hard, or broken in their past that they are unwilling to deal with or see, we tend to hold extra cushion or insulation on our thighs because we are trying to cushion ourselves or create a barrier between those memories and our current situation. So your thighs in particularly are about helping you progress forward and at the speed at which you progress forward. So the stronger your thigh, the faster you are at progressing forward. And the weaker your thigh muscles are, the more you're going to tend to feel emotionally stuck. So when I say weak thighs, that could be anything from there's pain or inflammation, or you might have strength there, but there's also a lot of excess weight. And so even though you have strength, you're not necessarily strong enough to continue to push forward or push through. So let's kind of dissect the thigh down. Okay. Firstly, you have the inner thigh and you have the outer thigh. So from your knee to your groin on the inner thigh is where you hold childhood memories of intimate or inner circle relationships. So these would be people that you have names, places, faces, like you can recall specifics about them because they were part of your inner circle. The outside of your thigh, so people that have, what do they call them? Saddlebags. No, maybe. I don't know. When you're, this part of your butt right here, where your butt and your thigh come together. Is that what they call them? Anyways, that's outer. And those are external forces. So that is, those are people that you don't necessarily like, they weren't part of your constant intimate circle. They weren't necessarily a close friend or family member. They were maybe an acquaintance or a complete stranger that had an effect on you that you held on to. So the first clarification that I need to make here is childhood. Because everyone has their own definition of childhood. And so without totally getting into a lot of mentoring right now, there are a couple of very distinct differentiations that I need to make here. So first, you are actually a child in body mapping until 30. The reason for this, in a 90-year lifespan, the first 30 years of your life are still quite about exploration and understanding and finding and striving. You really are in your infancy when it comes to knowing who you are, knowing your purpose, all of those kind of things. So when I talk about childhood, I'm not just talking about from, 0 to 9. I am talking about 30 years, your first 30 years. Now, with that being said, when it comes to mental, when it comes to your understanding and where the majority of your programming, your mental programming happens, the majority of mental programming for all people happens between 0 to 11 years old. By 11 years old, the majority of your mental habits and foundations, until you choose to change them, are there. So that's where a lot of your programming comes in. This is where when people talk about false beliefs, it's because even though I'm almost 40 years old, very rarely is a 40-year-old woman running the show. A lot of my choices, a lot of my fears, a lot of my worries and anxieties are coming from the fears of a 4-year-old. Okay? So when I am talking about your thighs and childhood and all of that kind of stuff, I'm not just talking about your mental programming and your belief system. I'm talking about the memories from the first third of your life. And it's so interesting whenever I talk about this because anyone under 30 gets so offended that I say, oh no, you're still a child. Anyone over 30 is like, oh my goodness, when I thought I was an adult and mature and whatever before I turned 30, there's just something that all of a sudden in that 30 to 40 year range that a lot of stuff clicks and it just gets better from there on out. So do not fear getting older is my short message on that. Okay, so childhood memories and why we hold them in your thighs. This goes back to what I was talking about with your mental programming between 0 and 11. The reason why it cuts off at 11 and it's only about 70% of your programming, because most people at 11 have just flat out not experienced certain things like driving. So you don't necessarily have any mental programming about your ability to drive or not drive. So that's why you can't say that all of your programming, all of your belief systems are ingrained by the time you're 11. So I do disagree with a few people on that because there are just some things that you haven't been exposed to yet. Okay, so what this has to do with your thigh. When we hate our thighs, we are basically saying that our past holds no value or that we have to be protected from our past. And so when you actually look at your thigh and you look at where your thigh holds extra protection for you, if it's on your inner thigh that you maybe have extra weight, those are memories, those are experiences from your childhood in your inner intimate circle. That there was some hurt, some harm, some betrayal, some frustration, some confusion. Versus if you're at the park one day and you're in a dress and you're swinging on the swings and some random little boy that you have no idea who it is points at you and laughs at you because he can see your underwear while you're on the swing, that's not going to affect your inner thigh because he's not in your inner circle. You have no idea who this kid is. But that embarrassment still, it stung, that's going to show up on your outer thigh. And this is one thing that I want to make very clear. I don't see emotions as positive or negative. Emotions are neutral. The actions you take because of those emotions are what then make your actions positive or negative. So someone could have laughed at you and you could have felt that embarrassment, and you could have gone to a parent and said, I don't like how I feel right now. That little boy pointed and laughed at me. And your parents could have said, well, that's embarrassment. And that's why, and you don't like the way that that feels. But what are you going to do about it? Okay, well, if you go into anger and then start making fun of that little boy, then yeah, anger is a negative emotion. But if you turn to people for comfort and acceptance and you get that, then embarrassment isn't as negative as we portray it as. So when I am talking about childhood memories, you will not hear me talk about positive or negative emotions, because the reality is the emotion isn't positive or negative. The action you take because you're feeling that emotion is what's then positive or negative. So as we talk about your thigh, and I bring this up, your thighs are about embracing your childhood and remembering that your past has a value and you have value now. Because if you don't feel like where you came from had any point, why would you continue to progress forward? If everything you've done up until this point in time has never mattered, what motivation do you have to continue going? So as you learn to love your thighs, love that they help you progress, love that they help you move, love that they get you from one place to another place. Let go of the hurt and the added protection that you think you need in order to progress. So inner thighs, the top of the inner thigh is where so many women have, it's their hate zone. And because somewhere we got this ridiculous thing that there needs to be thigh gap, which your pelvis, your actual bone structure has to be slightly tilted back for you to ever have thigh gap, no matter your size. So I'm sorry, ladies, but there are some of you that no matter how thin you get, you will never have thigh gap because that is just not how your bone structure is. Your pelvis has to be tilted. Anyway, squirrel. But that inner thigh, it is about those intimate relationships from your childhood. It is about those memories that you have, those experiences that you have. So I would invite you to actually take your hands and place them on your thighs. Place them on the place that you want to love, that you're learning to love. And I'm going to get backlash for this, but I'm going to say it anyways. And stop trying to love it. And first, try to like it. Do you like that your legs help you move forward? Let's start there. Because body acceptance and body love and all of these things get thrown around all the time. And the reality is you cannot go from hating your body, thinking that your body is horrible, wrong, disgusting, bad, to all of a sudden love it. And if you are not caring for your body to the best of your ability, you're also not showing it love or acceptance. When you choose to keep your body in an unhealthy state, you are still hating it, no matter how many positive declarations you say in front of a mirror. So there's two things with thighs that, after working with thousands of women, these are the thoughts that most of them have to overcome. So first, my past has value and so do I. When you can start to know and believe that my past has value and so do I, this helps you get into a place that you allow yourself to progress. But as I said before, if there's no point in anything you did before, you're not really in a hurry to try anything new now. Okay? The other part of this is I have watched so many women who how do I want to say this? Who are, because of the circumstances around them, are blaming that they can't progress. And we hold blame in our thighs. So if you're going to blame your spouse, blame your parents, blame your neighbors, blame your country, blame your neighborhood, blame the weather, blame whatever, you will have a really hard time ever really truly loving your thighs. You will stay in, I accept that this is how my thighs are, but that means you also are going to accept that this is what I have and I can't change it. You will stay in default. You will never move into a life of design. When you are willing to design your life, when you are willing to take and create what you want in life, then you love to progress and you love to move forward. It will help your hips, it will help your knees, it will help your thighs, it will help your ankles, because your leg as a whole lifts you up and pushes you forward. But if you don't find value in where you've been, you will have a very hard time knowing where you're going. So your past has value, and so do you. Your thighs are strong and they move you forward. Take care of them. Put lotion on them. Love them. Move them to whatever your current ability is. If all you can do is get up from your bed, walk to the chair, then do that 3 times a day instead of only 1. If you are a marathon runner, bless your heart, then go run a marathon, and whatever in between that looks like to you. Learn that your thighs are about finding value in your past, but allowing yourself to progress forward, because life is beautiful and it is about progression. But when you hold on to your past, you will hold on to extra weight in your inner thighs and in your outer thighs, and they will not hold strength, because if you don't see value in progressing forward, your thighs have a hard time getting strong. But if you see great value in moving forward, then there's flexibility in there. That was the question about hamstrings, tight hamstrings. Why does that happen? Because so the entire back of your body represents your past, and the entire front of your body represents your future. So if you have really, really tight hamstrings, tight muscles don't release. They don't release physiologically, and they don't release emotionally. So if you have really, really tight hamstrings, then there's something about your past that you are unwilling to let go of. Versus if you stretch that and you actually feel the release happen, emotionally, there was something about your past, about your childhood, about feeling stuck that you let go of and you release. Now, what about if it is your quads? You have really, really tight quads. There's a resistance to moving into the future. There's something about your future that you are holding back from or are afraid of moving into. So tightness in muscles is fear. Usually it's either fear or stubbornness. I like to think of it as tenacity because that sounds better. But really what it is your inability to let something go. So if you want to progress and you want to move on, tight muscles, don't release, stretch. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Stretch emotionally, stretch physically. And learn to love your thighs. Thank you, ladies.